59.
59. Another one. Bites the dust.
I was going to say bites the dust. And then I'm like, I can't say bites the dust.
I'm not sure why.
The that song by Queen back in the day, apparently if you play it backwards, it says, I like to smoke marijuana or something. I mean, it vaguely kind of sounds like that.
Yeah.
Because I played it backwards.
What does the song mean?
Another one bites the dust?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Maybe we should look it up.
But there was this like fundamentalist movement against the song because they thought it was promoting marijuana, I guess.
Seriously?
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. And I'm like, there's no way it says that backwards. I don't know, teenager when I heard about this.
How would somebody, and how does it even promote anything?
Right?
I mean, another one bites the dust.
Subliminal messages.
Backwards?
Right?
I mean, whatever another one bites the dust is. I don't, that's probably a message.
Oh.
What is the dust? What is it biting?
Get some quality content while I look things up.
Quality content is me drinking cacao. I'll make eyes at the camera in order to make it very exciting at this moment.
Bye. Another one bites the dust is violent and intense. Freddie Mercury's vocal performance matches the fervor of its message.
And message of
Alleged backwards masking. Oh, here we go.
Backwards masking?
Something I like to smoke.
I don't know.
That's.
I mean, I could see it just because you said it.
Decide to smoke marijuana. It's fun to smoke marijuana. Start to smoke marijuana. In the early 1980s, Another One Bites the Dust was one of many popular rock songs that some Christian evangelists allege contained subliminal messages through a technique called backmasking.
Oh, no, I was talking about the message of the actual song.
I still don't know.
Oh, okay. No, see.
We're going to have to leave the viewers in suspense.
Yeah. The backmasking, I guess, is kind of like everything within ourselves is backmasked.
This sounds like you're trying to connect this.
I'm not trying to connect it. I think it is true. I do think it's true. Like everything within us has this like the meaning that we assign to it, and then it has our own subliminal meaning behind it.
Layers. There's a lot of layers.
No, it's quite literally backwards masking, right? Like, because in that case, it's flipped backwards, and then you're trying to look at a meaning of something from like not even a different side of things, but like quite literally a flipped perspective of it. There you go. Whenever I have dreams, and sometimes I go into houses that are familiar to me.
Yeah.
They are flipped.
That's what you say.
Completely flipped.
But you don't mean like right and left flipped, do you? Or do you?
Perspective. Like completely perspective flipped.
What does that mean?
I don't even know how to describe that. Like, oh, there you go. There's on Instagram I sent you yesterday. There was the train. Remember the train?
Yeah.
It's almost like that, right?
Yeah.
The essence of the item is the same, but then your perspective can have a train go to the left to go to the right.
Yeah, I used to do that with in downtown cities there will be the theater, and it has like one of those array of lights going around the marquee, and it'll just be like every other one is lit, and it'll flip to the other one, and then it'll flip to the next one. And so if you look at it, it looks like it's going, let's say, clockwise, but if you can force it to go anti-clockwise if you want to in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would always do that. A ceiling fan, if I stare at it enough, I can get it to go backwards for just for half a second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think there's there's like the nesting doll effect in some saying. That's more of like layers, but this is almost like a flip perspective. I don't know why this comes up. Do you remember so I had a dream, and I don't remember the details now, but maybe you'll remember, but of course you'll never remember my dream. We were going on the subway, or I was going on the subway, and I was going to So I'm on a subway platform, and I am waiting for a subway train card to come. And I get into the train card, and a whole bunch of people are like getting in last minute. And for all intents and purposes, the human mind then perceives the subway as a traveling forward. Um, and so the perception of the mind that allows a subway card to travel forward, no, in our perception, the subway card travels forward. But then when it opens its doors on the other side and we get out, in that dream, it was basically a time travel mechanism.
I remember that, but it turns out you didn't need the subway in that dream.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The role of the subway cart that it played was, just like anything else, is a visceral immersion into the experience of traveling forward in space and time on the subway cart.
Right.
But in this case, the travel forward of the subway cart was, the forward was in time. But you could go backwards in time, or whatever.
Yeah, but like I thought the one of the elements of that dream was that you later found out that anybody can do this, and the subway cart is there just because people don't think they can do it, and they need like some sort of
Device.
device to
Yes.
to project that
Yeah.
ability onto.
Yeah. But that is kind of like the essence of our hiccup as a human incarnation, is that we believe that we need devices and tools and actions to make things happen in this world.
Nowhere is that more obvious than in medicine.
Yeah, right. So we have this is quite literally the essence of taking our sovereign power away from us, right? From our, not us, let's be honest, it's within us. It's just we don't believe in things functioning a certain direction. And so we need tools. And in this case, because humanity believed that time travel needed to be done via subway cart, then it was a subway cart that facilitated that action, right? And then, depending on when and time you want to travel, you get off at different stops. And there were other nuances and other people involved that I remember, but I won't mention. But you know what I mean? That was the essence of our being transported forth. And maybe that's the topic instead of the topic that we actually thought it would be, is that how much of our perception of what we're able and not able to do is tied to our limited reality. And then thus, just like that subway Instagram video, what it requires is a complete flip in perception, like not like a layer in or layer out, just a flip in perception.
Yeah. Is there any way you can describe what you mean by flip in perspective related to houses in your dream? Is it how it feels? Is it how it looks? I've had houses.
I guess it's the feeling. Like that's what it is. When I walk into the house, right, my mind has constructed the flow of like, okay, I walk in from the garage into the kitchen, and the kitchen then is thus this direction. But my perspective, like I probably had dozens of dreams of our home where the perspective is completely flipped. But I think it has to do with a construct. Like I'm seeing a different version of a construct. If I had to actually go like into a descriptive nature of why is it completely flipped, I'm seeing through the construct, and I'm seeing that the construct in my three-dimensional sense functions in this way. But when I go into my dream state, then the construct is different. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that I've done that. I have this weird spatial layout thing with houses, and everything is like relative to the front door. And I've thought about this a lot. And so
front door or the door you walk into?
Front door.
But
I'm not talking about dreams yet.
Oh.
But like our house right now, when you walk in the front door, the bedroom is on the left side of the house relative to looking at the front door, right?
Mm-hmm.
In our previous house, it was on the right side, and in the house I grew up with, it was also on the left side. Yeah, apparently you don't work that way because you have to like think about that.
Yeah, I don't.
But that's like the orientation of the bed relative to the front door is so apparent to me at all
Why so?
times. It always has been, and I've because I'm like, why does this way feel different than that way? Even if the literal orientation of the house as in which way's north is different on this house than it was in the house growing up, but they feel the same because the bedroom's on the left. In fact, my parents' master bedroom was on the left, and their bed is oriented the same way that our bed was oriented, even though their feet would have faced north and ours face east. But that's irrelevant. It's completely relative to the house itself, to where the front face of the house is. I don't know. It's weird. But in dreams, sometimes it's literally mirror imaged. I've had dreams at the house I grew up in, but instead of the sidewalk going like it's to the left of the front door, it would be to the right. It's like the bizarro opposite house.
No, to me it feels like a mirror image, but it's not. Do you see what I mean? It almost feels like a mirrored image from perception.
Okay.
But then in reality, it is not.
It feels like a mirror image. Then you wake up, you're like, actually, that is the way it is. But it felt like it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess mirror image would be interesting perspective. But that it's a complete flip, right? It's a flip. Yeah. I wonder why it's flipped. And I want to say because the structure, here's what, if I had to guess, and this might be a topic within its own. In our waking state, right, we're in what, the beta state, right? Primarily beta.
Alpha and beta, yeah.
Yeah. And so in that state, our perception.
That is spicy.
Yeah. It's just the first step and it gets better. So our perception is tied to that frequency, the frequency of the alpha and beta. And when we go into our dream state, right, and theta and delta, depending on where you are, like our perception is elsewhere. And so to form a construct, like we're recreating something from a different dimensionality into like this world.
I forget the actual frequencies of where alpha ends off. Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember. I already struggle with them. Alpha, beta, theta, delta.
Let me look this up because I have a thesis that is either going to be completely shot down by this number or not. Alpha is 8 to 12, and theta is 4 to 8. Delta is half to 4. The Schumann resonance of Earth is usually around 7 hertz or so, plus or minus. That would be in theta. And I wonder if when you're in theta, you resonate more with the actual planet itself. Like people like all, going on with the Earth itself. And if, when you get down into that, have you ever seen a video? There's a whole bunch of pendulums or metronomes or something, and it's on some sort of moving platter, or it doesn't even have to be on the moving platter. It can be, you could like pendulum clocks, grandfather clock type things. If you put a whole bunch of them in a room, it helps if they're not sealed. But if you just put a whole bunch of them in a room and they're all going at their own rate, come back tomorrow, they'll all be synced up. Metronomes, especially if you put it on, I've seen it puts on some sort of little wobbly plate, and they all sync up quick.
On the wobbly plate, they sync up
like quick? Like something that can roll, something that has a little play in it, like a little tray that's able to move a little bit. Mm-hmm. You put 5 metronomes on there, and they're all going at different rates and different speeds.
Yeah.
Within seconds, they're all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if when we're in that state, we all kind of sync up together. It's not like we're all on our own 7 hertz. We're all on this same 7 hertz, and that may help allow a connection to a shared consciousness or something. I don't know. I just made this up right now, so I don't know. But
Well, it doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum on the hertz, right? But yeah, if you're somewhere in the dumps and you can measure frequency of, let's say, fear. Not to get into fear, but you can measure fear, and if the consciousness amplifies it through resonance, through numbers of people, right? Then therefore it is so, right? I mean that's what the time machine in my dream. That's what it was. It was nobody believed they had their own power, but through this construct of time travel, and then therefore everybody believing in the construct that this is how it works, right? Then you create a reality where this is how it works, right? And then thus, in aspects of fear, if everyone's arousal draws them into fear, and then it amplifies as a resonance, right? Then therefore that is how it is so, right? Like 9/11 is a great example of that, right? I mean, what, like, terror, confusion, and I don't know. Terror and confusion maybe is the two words that
we're old enough to have lived through it, and that was it was like
that would be the two words: terror and confusion.
Yeah, we were like, "Are we gonna have?" We were both in college, and we're like, "Are we gonna have school tomorrow?" And we didn't know.
Yeah, but that type of resonance is just what drives our behavior. Like, this morning we were talking about how easy it is to fall into the resonance of the masses.
Yeah,
and then just become grouped in one. And then, in fact, not only not recognize it, actually awaken it within yourself, right? Awaken that resonance within yourself. Like, you get triggered and you're like, oh yeah, look. And subconsciously go, oh yeah, then I'm going to wake up this beast, right? And then insert your version of that same frequency, of that same beast, into the masses. And it is such a natural human behavior. You can't even see it going any other way. It's almost impossible for us to perceive a world where we see a behavior, and then instead of sinking into it, we become viscerally aware of it, right? And then step back in that awareness and then choose a different response.
Right.
And in fact, what I will point out is choose a response of love.
Yeah.
Or that, like, rising above. What I would want to say is something that we do not perceive is the personal power that we have, right? To actually drive a circumstance, to drive an outcome, to drive a different conclusion, and then step into that power.
Right. The very natural human response is to meet energy with like energy. And usually it's not great energy we're getting from other people. And someone, yells at you or says something you don't want to hear, whatever it is, you can imagine just any sort of interaction that isn't overwhelmingly positive. Then if it's not, then there's something in there that's not positive. So there's this, well, he said such and such, so I need to match that. I need to, get on the defensive. And if not get on the defensive, get on the offensive to cut him off or something.
Well, you go back into that trinary nature of existence where there's resistance, victim, and empire, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you are kind of moving me into that topic, but it's something that came up to me that I am now dealing with is this idea of a warring entity, right? Mm-hmm. That is within all of us. I think maybe I could be wrong. I'm still in the midst of, like, figuring out this and processing this. But I know through my genetic upbringing, maybe, but also maybe through the structure of like a DNA that I exercise, at times. There's this really large warring aspect within me that I'm like facing right now, right? Like the spiritual world has kind of like brought this into me to where like I actually feel this aspect within me almost as its own entity. And this is going to be a far stretch for some, but I'm thinking I've been reading a lot on like the actual um genome structure of a human race. Oh, I'm sorry, of earthen race. And the makeup of our existence from all the other offshoots, of like, I guess, galactic races. And part of it is, I think so a lot of teachings say that we make up 22 different races that are within our galaxy.
What do you mean we?
As an earthen, like as a
Oh, we're comprised of.
or as a
Okay, I
human
see.
species on Earth, we're comprised of 22 different races, genetic races that were combined into, what I would say our DNA or our genome, but from different timelines. Like to begin with, they said like the reptilians came in and they kind of like designed their version of a race. And then at some point, then the Galactic Federation came in and then they're like, oh, look, here's a planet that seems to be developing. And they inserted, their version of a genome in. And then later, now this is just one theory, but it seems to resonate with a lot of people. Like everybody has different takes of who did what when, but it seems to be this progressive manipulation through time. And then Anunnaki being one of them that came in and then, did their own stuff. So, but, they were kind of right there at the end. But before that, there was all this slew of things. I say at the end, and by end, I mean like,
Now
incomprehensible.
it's our turn to futz with ourselves.
Yeah, but we're starting to understand what that means, right? We're starting to understand what manipulation of DNA and genome means, and then how do we slice and dice and things like that.
But, at the rate of technology, we went from couldn't get off the ground 150 years ago to spaceships and striped toothpaste these days. It just project that type of technology forward 10,000 years. It's just it will be magic. We would think it's literal magic.
I want to say this. This is kind of going to be an offshoot of a caveat, but the technology that we actually have today that is not disclosed to us is so amazing.
That I believe.
And
but I'm just saying that the stuff that
we believe we have,
the stuff that is we've seen with our own eyes and is commercially available. Take an iPhone back 50 years. It's magic. It is literal magic. There's no way you could describe this to someone. It's like, well, it's it's a little rectangle and it has all of the knowledge of all of humanity on there, and we use it to watch cat videos. And
cat videos are the best.
I know. And it can take pictures, and it's a flashlight, and it's a microphone, and it's a video camera that's better than any of your things you have today. It's so just 10,000 years in the future, it will be crazy. Of course, we'll be able to basically splice stuff together in genes and stuff. Should we? That's a different question. But
yeah, but
I don't know.
With them, they kind of play. That's another thing we talked about, that they play on a playground, such a large playground, in comparison to what we can even foresee. That to us, we question. Should we, could we, would we, as this like moral ground, or like what is allowed ethically to do this, right? But like because I struggle with that is a human going, okay, where does responsibility lay on my standpoint from interference, right, or the prime directive? And so like the conversation you and I have all the time is my struggle with the prime directive. Like, where's the nuance? What is the nuance?
Right.
Can I interfere? Can I touch? Can I not touch? And so with them, they just have been playing on this playground, on the vast scales where, they're designing species, where they're forming planets. They're, just I wouldn't even like for me to even get into like, oh, designing social constructs. Like that is even, that's like completely unnecessary. They're on the genome level of interpretation.
Right.
Like galactically, and so we can't even foresee what that would be like.
Right.
And this is also kind of like a theory that I'm just coming up with and then throwing out. As we wake up the essence of ourselves, right? As we awaken to the greater depth of our being. And, that's the word that they have kind of like been using for a while. And then like I have taken on, but it means a lot. Wake up to the essence of our being is like a whole platter of things that carries, deeper meaning with it. I want to say within, you will be able to draw on the variants of your genome structure from various races and then differentiate the frequency within you, let's say within the 24 interpretive, let's say, races, and be able to differentiate each one within. Right?
You can just see where your different aspects came from.
Yeah. So what's happening is, at least with me, I don't know. I know you're on a different timeline, but like, I guess what you're seeing, what is happening with me, that I'm having a hard time actualizing in, but then with me, I want to understand, right? And I'm like the understanding behind like what I am going through this, but why and where's it coming from, right? There's this whole control standpoint of it. Is I want to say that when you start to wake up to the essence of your being, right? So remembering triggers knowing or triggers activation. That's the same thing. Knowing is activation,
Right.
and then activation leads to knowing. It's actually the same concept. But as you remember different aspects of yourself, and so like different essences of you come on board, and then you can connect to the frequency of that essence, then from that, you can kind of like do this little wormhole dive into like, oh, look, here's a structure, here's a culture, here's a whole civilization, let's say, or planetary system that is based on this concept. And you start to understand the warring concept within you, not necessarily from even, well, I mean, obviously it exists on a very earthen interpretation of reality, but from this larger galactic interpretation of being.
That makes sense. It's like you're taking these different, we'll use the word archetypes.
I love how you just go back to archetypes.
Well, I mean, and you can connect it to like a source.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to you, archetype within itself is the source. The emanating source is the archetype. Is that what you're seeing as? I know you and I always argue about this.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the archetype is, it's not that it's the source. It's more like this.
You know what it does? Here's what here's why.
Solidifies it?
Yes, it solidifies it on earthly grounds.
Yeah.
And it terminates exploration. And that's why it bothers me.
Oh, wait.
It terminates
exploration. I was going to say your thing solidifies it.
Oh, no. My thing opens me up to a larger interpretation of myself. And then I'm able. So do you remember what I said? There was the Orion portal I was talking to you about in connection to Egypt and all that. And I said, oh, I can't see. So for some reason, it's masked off. I'm like blocked off from seeing past this certain point, right? So from that same standpoint, is I feel like the second you bring an archetype and you bring Jungian teachings, I don't know anything about the dude, so like he might be the best dude in the world, but I feel like it was literally a lock-in mechanism to stop exploring. Now, I know he meant it in a very like, here's a way for you to explore yourself way, but I feel like it is literally a termination of exploration.
as in you can't, there's nowhere to explore, like, where did this come from? It's kind of, my understanding is that it's kind of like, almost like we have this collective consciousness, and we all share these attributes, archetypes, really.
How many are there? Is there 20 something?
I've
In the lower
seen
20s?
many different lists, some going into the hundreds, but I think his list, wait. On one hand, there's 4, but on the other hand, they divide into subcategories of the positive, the negative, and then the central one.
Wait,
which makes 12.
Isn't the tarot card deck slightly based on, like, he based his archetypes on the tarot?
Possibly.
The tarot came before him, though, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, but then he kind of based his
maybe
archetypes on tarot.
I don't know how many his had. 12, maybe. 12 sounds like a good number.
Yeah. So here's what I feel. Like, I think, right, I think Earth has these transitory phases, like these shifts that, okay, at this point, we're able to phase in and understand this concept. And then, like, move a little bit further into our galactic cycle. And then, okay, now we understand this concept and this concept. And they all build them upon themselves, right? Through this, like, rational progression of, like, linear time and space, right? So through the contemplation of linear time and space, we then progress in our understanding of concepts, right? Versus other cultures just kind of get a dump, and then you see the essence of it all almost through the beginning notions of it and then the propagation of it. And versus with us, we're like, oh, crawling out of the ground mole style, like going, oh, where's the light, right? Although I don't know if moles want to see the light or not. Gosh, I'm kind of like, and so then I think there was, obviously there was a lot of benefit to him deriving these archetypes and allowing us to start to view ourselves as this dynamic being that has all of these parts within ourselves. And I'm assuming the reason why you say Jungian is because he has some sort of aspect on war or warrior.
There's a warrior archetype.
Okay. And what do you remember what it, or not really? Other than the fact that it's a warring being.
I don't remember. I mean, strength, power, whatever. But they all have positive and I don't remember his exact list, but there was
Well, worry is a very obvious archetype.
A follow-up person who had 4. There's the warrior. There's the lover. There's the, I want to say, king.
And a fool?
Is it fool? It might be fool.
Because tarot is a fool.
Magician.
Oh, magician. Okay.
I think those are the 4. But each of those then has the king. There's, the obvious good king, wise and strong and loves his people. And, you can imagine the quote archetypal king, right? King Arthur or something, he's good and wholesome, right? But then you can imagine the king going in the bad way of, like, the tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
Who, doesn't care about his people, he just craves power. Or you can imagine the king going the other way, which is like the spoiled brat. I think that was the other example. So each of these archetypes then has, the I don't know, inferior version in 2 different ways. One where they go way overboard, and one where they go way, I guess, underboard.
Mm-hmm.
And each of those has that.
But that's the same concept as the empire, victim, and resistance.
Yeah, it kind of is. And warrior, I think, it has anywhere from, the bloodthirsty murderer down to, the weakling would be the
yeah. But again, you're in a triangulation mindset of the empire, victim, and resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, I guess you could look at it that way. I guess you could look at it as the archetypes within you becomes apparent and awakens.
What I was going to finish that up. The theory there goes, if you imagine like a 4-sided pyramid, right? And one side is the warrior, and one side's the lover, and whatever, right? The goal is to be there at the center of that center/top of that pyramid. And you don't want to be too much warrior. You certainly don't want to be like the tyrant warrior or the tyrant king and whatever it is. I'm not sure I got the right number of dimensions for this, but it's that central place, which in the example that I heard is above that, because it is, he described it was on a podcast. Listen to it. It was at the, not just in the center, but at the top.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because it's like there, right? You want aspects of all of these things as a healthy, individuated self, right? But they can all go wrong in various ways too. Or so the theory goes.
Do you want aspects in all of them within you?
Right. Like,
are they not definitions?
I don't know. Like, are they definitions or are they attributes? Like, you could almost go either way. It's like a warrior, you can see how that could be bad. It's easy to see how warrior could go bad. That's an easy one. But at the same time, some amount of, I think self-confidence is probably wrapped up in warrior, maybe in king too. Not getting walked on or pushed over or something is wrapped up in warrior as well. And it isn't about fighting. It isn't about killing. If it goes, it can go there in the wrong way. But
yeah, but when you reach the point of awareness, right, of self, can you split your psyche into archetypes? Is there archetype of your psyche split whenever you reach equilibrium?
I think the goal of I think the actual Jung's actual goal is complete balance of all of them. Is that, imagine we've got, I don't know, these 4, these 12, whatever, and we're too much of this and we're not enough of that and whatever. And the proper, I don't know if there is one proper level, but it's this perfect balance of everything.
Yeah, I would almost say that it's nullification of all of them.
Maybe nullification, especially if you look at it as these can go two opposite, very bad ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awareness of the fact that these concepts exist within you, and you can birth them as expression of self, and then seeing the binary nature of the parameter of the scale of where you could go one way or the other, right? The resistance in that would be denial of that concept, right? If you deny the fact that you're a warrior, right, or if you're a Warren, and then you have a fight within you, or you don't have enough fight within you, that whole thing can be recognized as one concept, that one essence of being. So like in this aspect, if I'm working on the warrior essence within me, right, I can recognize that it is let's say an archetype, or this essence of me that exists as part of my psyche, right, as part of my like DNA in bed, that I have this vast memory and this vast field. Like I almost see it as a field that I can tune into, and there's all aspects of it in there. So I guess in the way that I'm seeing that entire scale of Jungian interpretation there. And then you can actualize it. Look, this is the essence of me. I have this within me, and I have all these options that I could dive into reality through that lens. Right? That's kind of what I think he was trying to say, right? I can live my reality through that lens.
I mean, I think it's more than I can. It's that I do live everybody does live their reality through those lenses, and they just don't necessarily realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's true.
All these different things are drawing them in different directions in life and making them overreact to this and underreact to that, and to a large degree running the show on their lives. Because the whole thing of the archetypes is that they're subconscious, right? It's not, you're not actively, I'm the warrior, I've got to, it's all subconscious. It's You could look at it as your subconscious is divided into these things. I don't like the idea of it being divided like that. I don't know if that was his thing, but I've heard it described that way.
Well, you almost like through life, right? Like, right, this is the same aspect in the belief structure that the life is like a play, like a Shakespearean play, right? And then you walk around and you take on these character forms.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Deliberately or inadvertently.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, you come into this scenario and, if you're unaware, obviously, right? If you come in and you're unaware, then you like take on this role, and this role will have this attribute to it. And then you'll participate in these actions, acting to be this type of a human being.
And the three trinary ones are the easiest to do blindly. It's so easy to just become a victim and not even realize it. And you just want to share your story with everybody else and get more people on your side, which just makes you more of the victim. It's so easy. I know because I have done that a lot.
Yeah. And, and I think we become dependent on those cycles. We can become dependent on those expressions. And sooner or later, we just get lost in like one or two of them.
Yeah.
And then like literally the only source of energy that you can derive, we talked about this, is like sooner or later after suppression and this narrowing down of any perspective of self subconsciously, you don't have any prana that you can draw in. So you're like, life starts to wither away because you're like utilizing one pathway of expression and unrecognizably so stuck in it. And that's it. Like, you're stuck because everything else has been, you've been blinded off to all the options of you. And in fact, you don't even see the option that you have chosen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
I know some people in particular that I'm thinking of right now that way. Do you know what I mean? And so that expression, in my case, I'm exploring right now, like the recognition of the being within me that goes into war, right? That very easily dives into war because everything around me presents to be war.
Yeah.
But again, that is the lens at which I'm seeing things through, right? Now, is an argument there that everybody else is kind of on a cumulative level right now, is being like global consciousness right now is propagating the morphic resonance of war. Now, internal war that they don't recognize within themselves, but because no one goes internally and we all go externally, then it becomes this cumulative mass consciousness.
Right. They
activated.
People feel the war inside themselves. They may not be able to articulate what it is, but they feel an internal conflict. And it's a lot easier to go pick a person, pick a country, pick a race of people, whatever, and fight them than it is to, hash out that battle inside yourself and understand what's actually going on.
Yeah. Like almost withdraw from any outward battle, right? And actually go in and figure out what battle is it that you're actually fighting on the inside, right? Like what am I warring over? Like if there's this need for this entity to be a warmonger or whatever, right? Like what am I fighting for? What am I fighting over, right? And in my concept, like right now,
I almost think that the internal battle is less what am I fighting for and more what am I fighting against.
Yeah, but maybe. But in my case, I realize, right, because I've been trying to actualize, okay, what is it that is trying to bring into me, right? And I realized it's not, at some point, you see it as an entity, as this concept, as opposed to any one expression thereof.
The idea of the war itself?
The idea of the concept of the war, right? This like...
It's no longer against this or that.
It's just a war. Like a concept of a war, concept of fight, concept of really.
And there just always has to be something. It just lives on, whether or not there's a subject to fight about.
It's an active concept within you that anytime can get activated the second you trigger it with the world right now. And right now, the world right now is triggered into war. Like everybody is quite literally preparing for war.
In the same way that love is an active thing inside of you that can get triggered in a good way.
How often does that get triggered?
Right.
Right. Yeah. And so, the message that I guess I'm getting, and then thus I think the message that the masses would be exploring is, if you don't go outside and you don't deem someone to be an enemy, or you don't deem someone to, if you don't find the need to dive into an external expression of that warring being within you, right? Then what do you do instead? When you see through it, what do you do instead?
I just realized we're only on episode. We just finished episode 2 or 3 of The Patient, and the plot is that Steve Carell is a psychiatrist who has been
Kidnapped.
I guess spoiler alert, kidnapped by his patient, who turns out is a serial killer, and the patient genuinely wants to get better. But he has impulses to go kill people. But, we find out this was literally my first question would have been, what links all these people together? What is, what's common about all the people that you've killed, and they've all, offended him or made him upset in some way. They all triggered him.
Oh, yeah.
They all, right. But, but what is it? They all made him feel inferior or whatever, whatever it is. It's that.
And he goes to war.
How
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, no, but remember when we were trying to pick our Hulu watch list yesterday? I was like, that's the one I want to watch.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had that on our, the saved on our 2 watch list.
Oh, okay. You were also,
that was the 2 watch
you
list.
were also driven into that.
Yeah, but I'm like, but it's seemed like it might be a little heavy for nighttime.
No, it's heavy, right? But with me, maybe this is like a side story that I will say. So I had a dream. I had a dream where somebody comes into my narrative, and I recognize them from the space beyond. I will be vague about like the generalized dream metaphorical interpretation of the characters, but that's what it is. Somebody comes into my dream and I recognize them from the space beyond energetically, right? I know that I know them. And then they basically go, oh, hey, I know you from this lifetime when you were a war, like a general, like a ruling. So it is, he said Burmese, but I don't actually know where Burma is or where Burma was in this like warring time. And then he kind of like sends this laser beam of knowing into myself. And all of a sudden I see myself and I remember this lifetime where I was this general, and, and then the energy of that war, like the entire essence of my being through that whole lifetime was war. Right. And this was like slightly less than a week ago. Right. And I don't understand what is it about this that gets activated within me. Right. And so what I then recognize is like this expression within me that I'm like, oh, that is a strange thing to become aware of, this lifetime where you were a warring general, right? But then I can feel the entire embodiment of that within myself, right? And then like the essence of me just expands into this concept. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, that is such a strange concept, because here I am, I would say, a small-sized woman in 2024, right? To where that is not the essence of me.
Hard to even relate to at that
hard
level.
To relate
at the
to
physical level.
That much war and that much propagation of fighting. But then as I sat with it, not necessarily consciously, but subconsciously, all these other things that kept on coming into my world, and actually in a physical sense, and not in a dream state, where people who were trying to get in touch with me, right? Like I would go, okay, well, there's something that is bringing this person into my life that they're trying, right? That I'm like, there's something. And so that, I realized that there's an energy that they're trying to come in with. And then therefore there will be something there for me. And so as I go, okay, well, knowingly, right, in a very controlled sense of a way, I'm knowingly diving into it and going, okay, instead of me diving into whatever this will be, what if I dive into it with knowingness that there's something in here that is getting ready to poke me? And what is that poking, right? And so there's 3 scenarios actually that happened all within like a 1 or 2 day period. All of them would have brought up this essence in me that was this warring concept of a general, right? I guess. And that's what I want to say. I wanted to have a episode on past lives, but I will touch on. I will need to make a note on that, but I will touch on it here. The past life comes in. The memory of a past life comes in is when you're ready to explore and then release the trapped energy of that whole nature of things.
That's when you remember it.
Yeah, that is when you remember that lifetime. And because it allows this greater knowing, and then like, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than Tanya in 2024, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to say is for those who don't even believe in the past lifetimes, it carries significant amount of cleansing. The possibility, if you do it right, to just dive into that concept. Even if you say, okay, well, this is just a fabricated structure and narrative that I need to dive into right now, that is completely fake and unreal, but that carries just as much credence as the idea of that being your real lifetime. So it doesn't actually matter whether or not you believe in past lifetime or not.
Yeah, you can just pretend it's a story.
Yeah, you can pretend like this is a fictional story.
And just try to put yourself as the character in the story.
Yeah. But that's same thing as a Jungian interpretation of psyche, right? It's the same thing. It doesn't actually matter what you believe in. If it comes into your lifetime and there's this whole narrative around it, and in fact, you will feel it very viscerally as if it's your truth.
That's the thing. That's how you know there's something there. But I mean, that's the same thing as dreams. These are stories that you're gifted at night. And so, wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, I just got a story.
Yeah.
And, oftentimes there's something there.
Yeah. But, let's be honest. Our lifetime right here is a story. It's not any different. It's like in this day, in this moment, you don't see this interaction as a story, but it's a microcosm of our entire lifetime. And when you die and you do the life review, you actually see yourself in one big loop of a story.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I was saying, if people don't remember their past lives, and they're trying to come up with what story, like your dreams are an endless supply of stories to dive into.
Yeah, but some people don't even remember their dreams.
Yeah.
So in that instance, you can just dive in onto like a character. Like you almost go, okay, what is the character that I feel right now? So maybe Jung had that interpretation of like, just go into a character play. And I go, oh yeah, well, I feel like a warlord and I feel like I am defending my nation and I feel like I am defending my country. And there's this deep love, but at the same time, the expression thereof is through war. I don't know what War and Peace is. I know I'm half not half Russian, but Russian-ish of origin. But I guess when he wrote that, what is the concept of that? I think comes in somehow in there.
In traditional Jungian psychology, there's 2 ways to communicate with your subconscious. One is with dreams, but for people who don't dream or don't remember dreams, the second is, I don't remember the name of it, but it's basically imagination. And so you kind of
allow yourself to
allow yourself to yes.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
It's like you're basically, it's vaguely a dream, but you're awake and you're just letting your imagination run wild, and then you can talk with your characters, and you have, it's more like a lucid dream, but you're awake. You can actually interact with your characters.
Yeah. But in some sense, when people interpret their past lives, in a way, you're doing that.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I had an example. I was in like a workshop, like like an online workshop where you were like guided to dive into a past life, right? And I dove into a past life completely in my psyche, right? That basically at the time represented what is it that I needed to work on, right? And then at the end, we got to share like, oh, our experiences and whatnot. And somebody else in that same workshop brought out the exact description of my past life that I went into. Like literally, we like went on to like past life dive, and then we became a character like of what we saw from our shoes on up. That's how past life regression works. Like you look at your shoes, or you look at your feet, and then you work your way from your feet up. And I became the character that is quite literally somebody else's character on this, let's say 20 or 30 people workshop, right? And so in that instance, right, can you believe that this is your past lifetime? Yes, no, I don't know. Is there a question then that lays in there? Do we just share the collective memory of so many versions of lifetimes, and we believe that there are unique interpretation, but in fact, it is just us piping into cosmic consciousness that is feeding that information of here's how this expression feels like.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so is the nuance of that lifetime past that moment slightly different? Like this person went into a different interpretation, but it was the same character, right? And so then the question there lays in, I came up with that character and I know it was me. And then honestly, because I am able to tune into her, I realized, oh, we share the frequency. The frequency that brought in this character as a past lifetime expression was the same. But then like her nuance of the details was different. Like, the walls were different and the coloring was different and who she was interacting was different. But mine was very similar. But, just like we started talking about to begin with, that mirrored perspective, but of the same character.
Yeah, interesting.
Right?
I don't remember you telling me that. I'm sure you did. I just don't remember it.
Yeah, but that, you question the nature of what is this memory of a past lifetime, right? What is this trapped entity that lives inside of you that needs to be expressed, needs to be acknowledged, and then allowed to be your truth from the essence of its fruition, right? If you go back to Jungian's teaching, I guess, what we're needing to acknowledge within us, I guess what Jung is saying, but if you look at it from the galactic standpoint, if our mix of self is definition of all of these propagation of consciousness that come in from all these extraterrestrial DNA genomes, if you want to believe that, right? On the human scale, the only thing we can do is acknowledge all of these essences within ourselves and actually see them as these propagation of huge storylines, huge historical significances that is all us. And then actualize into our any one expression thereof at any one time. But instead of seeing it and then instead of not seeing it and then getting lost in a narrative, see yourself as this cumulative body that holds this embodiment, right? Of like, oh, look, here's the war within me, right? And then allow that war to come into fruition within.
Yeah, exactly. What's less interesting to me is, do you believe it's a past life, or do you think it's a dream, or do you think it's a story you're making up, or do you think it's extraterrestrial DNA, or do you think it's psychological archetypes? Irrelevant.
Or there's different descriptions.
How you describe it, what you irrelevant. But there is something there that is at the very least a useful way to explore yourself.
Yeah, it's all about gnosis, knowing thyself.
Yes.
And whatever definition you draw in to actualize that within yourself is irrelevant.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I don't know if you feel this way, but I know there's a war. There's the being of war within me.
Oh yeah, I feel.
And I can feel this being of war. And this morning when I became aware of it, when I woke up, I went, oh my gosh, I can feel it. This whole entity, this all energetic form, that it is the essence of my expression as war. And then I looked at it as this its own being, as its own form of expression. And then I went, oh wow, not only not only am I not diving into it as a concept of complete blindness, I'm actually raising above the any nuance of it, and I'm seeing it's this whole flower, like it's all bloom, like as if you know how you say you bloom into the lotus of self, and then yourself is the bloom. The entity of me that is war has its own bloom, and it's beautiful, and and holds potential and holds expression, but I can see it for what it is, right? And then very actively, then I recognize there's this very visceral choice that I have what I do with it. And then in my perspective or my goal, I guess if you have this thing as a goal of gnosis, is to go, yeah, I can see all the useful aspects thereof. And I can see every way I used it to get me to the point of right now.
Yeah.
In all the ways it comforted me, in all the ways I felt like I was in control, in all the ways I felt like this is the strength I needed to have the fight within me to survive or to go on or right, whatever. It's this huge tool that I used, obviously, in order to make it to this point in my life right now. But then at the same time, I thought, yeah, but there's so much force and energy there. There was just a survival instinct.
Yeah.
That it was there as a tool that I needed ultimately for the perception of survival. And then I thought, oh my gosh, after I just saw through all of that, there was this part of me that went, oh my gosh, there was so much energy exerted and put in and exercised into the fight, into the war, into the propagation and then reaction and there was just so much.
Right. It's like you're I don't know, driving with a handbrake on.
Yeah.
Calling it a handbrake dates me.
Yeah. No, but now I wish our car had a handbrake so I can practice that 180 turn.
Apparently you don't need it.
Oh, you don't need it?
You don't need it for that.
Okay, yeah.
You need it for other things, but not for that.
Yeah. I have this desire within me.
We'll take the red car and we'll go out
to some large parking lot.
To the school someday.
Well, no, it needs to be a huge parking lot because I feel like I need a lot of space. But think about that. I'm being driven into this visceral action of a 180 turn. But think about it, it's a mirrored concept.
It is, yeah.
Right.
I played that driving game BeamNG with Annabelle.
Oh, did you get to do it in the game?
Yeah, it was fun.
Oh, okay. Maybe I just need that. Maybe I just need that visceral expression in whatever that game is.
Yeah.
Instead of endangering myself in real life, I can go into a video game and do the 180.
So the points in my life, some of the hardest points in my life were when I was the deepest at war with myself. And it was, thinking back, it was the times when I accepted myself the least. There was who I really was being fought by who I thought I should be, or who I was told I should be, or who,
yeah,
right. And it's hard and it's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
There's no winning that battle.
Well, no, you need to have that battle until you see that you no longer need to have that battle.
But you're never going to defeat who you are. It's that's what I mean.
You mean an acceptance?
Yeah. The way out of that particular battle, and it was always so easy for me to I wasn't consciously aware that was what was going on. It was always it's their fault, it's whatever. It's always somebody else's fault.
Yeah. Well, you were in the triangulation.
Yeah,
denying self.
But if anyone who is in that, you can't win. You can't win that battle from the standpoint of suppressing your true self. You may think you've won it. You may go, okay, finally, I've pushed my true self down, and now I can finally be whatever society wants me to be, or whatever it is, whatever my religion wants me to, whatever my parents, whatever my school, whatever my job wants me to be, whatever. But you can't kill your true self. It's always in there and always wants to come out.
Yeah. But I will say this. at some point when you don't realize it, why you're suppressing your true self is because you're afraid what you're going to face on that other side.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why would I not acknowledge this warring aspects within me, right? To begin with, let's say, is because the need for the fight exists there because of all the fears that I'm trying not to face and mitigate
Right.
through the aspects of war.
Yeah, it's there for a reason.
So you're not actualizing into, let's say, your archetype or your warring being, in this case, in my case, because you have to admit that there's a fight that you're fighting within you. Like, you have to admit that you're trying to win over something or cover something up, or you feel victim, or you feel scared, or you feel unsafe. Do you know what I mean? And the war is there to mitigate the pain and mitigate the suffering.
Yeah.
Within, right?
Right. I mean, these are all the shadow things.
Yeah. I know. I'm literally kind of myself reanalyzing Jungian theory here. But if that,
I mean, I've said this before. I'm not saying that Jung is 100% right, 100% wrong. I'm just saying that bits and pieces of it are a useful tool for me as a mental model.
Well, no, obviously we have spent an entire episode relating into it. So yeah, right. I give him credence.
It's I mean, that's how we view all these things, anything from, Jung to pick a religion. It's like there's bits and pieces that are helpful and useful.
Yeah.
I mean, remove any sort of moral right, wrong, good, bad. It isn't even that. Is it? It's almost like it's just practical. Is it useful?
Yeah. Maybe with me, maybe I have said this before. Maybe with me is I have this maybe to some extent over visceral reaction or over exaggerated reaction to something that like in any way draws a boundary, right? And maybe he does, and that's the thing, is I'm not all the way familiar with his teaching, and I can probably spend lifetime diving into the teaching and trying to understand the rudimentary nuance on it. But at least the earthly interpretation of it has like taken his teaching and like drew parameters or boundaries based on his interpretation, right? If he was here to like defend and expand on his teaching and, actually like tell me, no, Tanya, here's what I actually mean, I would probably agree with him 120%. But like there's all these offshoots, just like with Steiner, right? Just like with Yogananda, like those same things is you take this amazing concept and then everybody has their own interpretation of it. But their own interpretation of it is quite literally draws boundaries and limits based on how far their personal psyche goes.
Yeah.
And then with me, that's what I have a problem with, is that bounding limit on expansion of psyche past the concept. Do you know what I mean? And so if I got introduced to it by some sort of limited nature of somebody else's interpretation, then by default I'll go, yeah, I'm like almost again at war with that boundary.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that because I'm not quick to just adopt things without, I'm on the skeptical side of almost anything that I hear, and it isn't that it has to be proven. It just has to, make sense or be useful or something. So yeah, I know what you mean.
No, yeah, but with me, and I mean, I think you will see this within me, but like I think you do this within yourself too. I dive in, so like I can take a concept, right, and I can like, this is how I interpret it. This is maybe weird, but that's my interpretation of it. I can dive into the energetic signature of everything that it represents from the frequency standpoint, right? Like I can take his whole teaching or like Steiner's whole teaching, and then I can dive into the net frequency of expression behind the teaching. Does that make sense? And I can then go and I can go, oh look, I can, like with Steiner's, it's super easier for me. Then I can go, oh, look, he's just tying into the Pleiadian teaching and his earthly expression. And he's taken this vastness and he's trying to, through this ray of expression, represented in his lifetime as a human in Rudolf Steiner, as a Rudolf Steiner, like, right? His essence of self is then representing this ray of a small nature of Pleiadian's teaching, right? And so I can feel that frequency of representation, but at the same time, I can go into the frequency and then I can go, here's how Earth 2024 is interpreting his intent. And then I can see all these flaws and blocks within it. And then I can see like this great man's intent, the propagation thereof, and then the limiting nature of our earthly interpretation of that being.
Right. Yeah, no, I can see that too.
Do you see what I mean? And so like
Jesus.
Yeah, right. Same thing. And so therefore then my internal self that is interpreting this vastness, maybe to some extent goes to war, but definitely gets almost nauseated against the misfortunate, what's the word?
Misinterpretation?
Misinterpretation, but disservice that we have done to Steiner, to Jesus, to Buddha.
We take this pure thing, which is so much better than we know today, of course. And then we take it
on purpose.
No, it's not on purpose.
Yeah.
But then, it gets touched by all these, humans with, pain bodies and, sometimes agendas.
We're doing the best we can with what
even when we do the best we can, it happens.
That
but, we don't always even do the best we can. Sometimes it's like, oh, geez, if we change this part of the book, it'll sell a lot more.
Well,
there could be any number of nefarious things. But even when we do the best we can, it gets tainted by all of our cumulative issues.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is the right time to bring this up. This is slightly offshoot and off topic, but so spirit, like a spiritual journey or spiritual awakening or spiritual teacher, right? I don't know if I can bunch Jesus into here. So let's take Jesus and put him out and we can decide whether or not he belongs in his bucket or not. But like me, or Rudolf Steiner or Yogananda, sure. Or like Edgar Cayce or I don't know, like whoever is a modern day teacher, right? Bruce Limpton, there you go. Like I admire Bruce Limpton, right? Or Greg Braden, same thing, right? To some extent, all of us are in this position where we are an incarnated human soul on planet Earth who have lived, right? In my case, 30-something years of this lifetime, but let's say the previous knowledge of the lifetimes, if you believe in past lives, in this clusterfuck of bullshit, right? Human nature, human reality, human dive, total blindness, total unacceptance, avoidance, just everything you can possibly imagine, like the depth of human experience is at the essence of me, right? And I want to say, I say this, admitting this about myself, but this is all spiritual teachers out there right now. Maybe some of them are exceptions. I don't know, obviously I know all of them, but majority of the spiritual teachers out there have this goal. The goal is for you to see me as a clusterfuck of shit, right? Like literally, I am the clusterfuck of shit, and here's my representation of it. Here's how I struggle with this, and here's how I struggle with that. And here's how I'm blind to this issue, or I'm blind to that issue.
I see why you pulled Jesus out of that list.
Yeah. And because of that, at the same time, I am going through the process of gnosis, for the process of awakening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that process of awakening comes in with these tidbits of knowledge that allow me to bring in these aspects within myself, pain body being one of them, trauma being one of them, aspects of victimhood or triangulation of empire, resistance, and victim. And so all of these episodes of a podcast is literally me as a clusterfuck of bullshit that is my human incarnation in this form, struggling to actualize all of those aspects, shadows of self, let's say, into the light and offset my subconscious reality with the actualization of truth.
Right.
That is love.
Right. I mean, but that's the only way, because short of being born in an enlightened being, you go from clusterfuck of shit ideally in the direction of awakening.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
And but B, practically, it's more compelling. It's like, oh, I can actually relate to this person. It's harder to relate to Jesus than it is to relate to Bruce Lipton. He's Bruce Lipton's a guy. He's smart.
Yeah.
He's figured a lot of stuff out, but I'm sure he's made, I don't know, but I'm sure he's made mistakes along the way, and I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I should have done that. Whatever. He's human.
Yeah.
And so you can relate to him.
Yeah.
Yogananda, you can relate to Yogananda. Buddha, you can relate, at least early in his life, you can relate to him. He was a prince, but he was a normal guy, and he, enjoyed all the finer things of life. Right? You can relate to that.
Yeah, but I want to say,
and it gives you hope and inspiration that, well, if he can do it, maybe I can do it too.
Yeah, and the goal is not to provide inspiration. The goal is to showcase to self, right? And then in my case, I think it is extremely beneficial to be able to see through my personal clusterfuck of a journey and then to draw your own narrative out of this idea. But in no way, I want to say, should, Yogananda or Steiner or Bruce Lipton be seen as these like, whoa, deities, or you should lose yourself in their perfection. Right. Because there is no such thing as perfection. What they represent, and I'm not trying to say that they're somehow wrong or somehow bad. No, the essence of their amazingness lays in that expression of them as a human soul actualizing into the knowing. And the most important thing that I can deliver in my form right now is the visceral showcase of this clusterfuck of shit.
Right.
And then what it means to struggle with and then bring forth knowing, and then the battle between my psyche denying things and my psyche misinterpreting things and me not knowing that this warring aspect of me exists, and then me feeling the warring aspect within me, and then me seeing it as an entity. And all of that is my personal struggle. But that is the job. If I had a job, that is my job.
Right. I mean, I think in a lot of areas of study, people can put other people on a pedestal. It's like almost a trope in movies where, someone's in college and their professor literally wrote the book on criminal psychology, and it's like, oh my gosh, they can do no wrong, whatever. And in the quote spiritual world, it's extra easy to do that. To go, oh my gosh, Yogananda is literally a god. Oh my gosh, whatever. But no, they can be role models, they can be inspirations, but it isn't a, and they may have, a story or a theory or a guidelines to live by that you may or may not agree with, some or all of them. But to take a person and make them flawless and go, everything they say is 100% true, everything they've done is 100% perfect and good, is for anybody is wrong.
Yeah, but what the reason I bring this up is not to try to do anything other than point out that when we take Steiner's teachings, right, you can separate Steiner away
Steiner the man away from Steiner's
the
teachings.
The teaching, right?
Yeah.
And he's not here to talk about his personal journey, right? And his actualization into his teaching. The only thing we have is his teaching, right?
There's a lot of it.
Right? Yeah. But, and again, I'm not familiar with all of the Steiner's teaching.
I could not believe there were multiple not rows of bookshelves, but entire bookshelves.
Well,
floor to ceiling.
It's not only his teachings, it's interpretations of his teachings.
I mean, most of them had him as the author on the spine.
Oh, okay.
And some of them were like transcriptions of his lectures and whatever, but it was multiple bookshelves, hundreds of books. It was wild.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them probably in German, but.
Yeah, but what I wanted to say is the essence that Steiner brings in, right? Or the book, for example, that I'm reading right now, right, has this aspects of channeled form of like extraterrestrial, intergalactic and outer galactic teachings, but then at the same time, it's a human being presenting it, right? And you can see the dynamic nature, like from the standpoint, instead of me just losing myself in this point, I can see myself interpreting the line of truth that exists, right? Same thing with Steiner, right? I can feel his energetic signature, for some reason I was going to say cling in, but maybe that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to cling into this infinite amount of light that he interpreted as just pure magic, right? And this lost form of expression that is the Pleiadian culture, right? And so he like literally dove into it, lost himself in it, and then his entire goal is to bring in this light into our form, our being, and leave manuals upon manuals upon manuals of here's how you can start to interpret that.
Right.
But if you don't connect into the Pleiadian current and you just start interpreting his things like, oh, look, he said, do this, this, and this. Let's start dancing and let's put on these teal colors. And that's like, go into our psychic mind and then open into this concept. It is not wrong. You're not wrong in saying that is how you would dive into it. But then we can get lost of why and how and what is it we want out of it.
You get lost in the
human nature of it.
Yeah. The day-to-day, the
mundane,
the specifics of the implementation instead of the overarching message.
Yeah,
it's like
no,
there's
he does have a lot of specifics. Like, he talked about like what type of paper you use,
which may or may not be right. I don't know.
Yeah,
but Jesus has an overarching message of love, and then there's the specific of well, eat the wafer and drink the wine, and it's like, which is more important to me? The overarching message of love is, if you had to boil it down to something, that's it. That's the key takeaway. And do you use this wafer or that wafer? Do you use this wine or do you use juice? Do you have instruments in your church or not? These are, to me, they become trivialities at that level.
But think about this. This is going back to the subway. Humanity, right? Because we're unaware of our own personal power, or we're unable to tune into this larger scope of things, we need literally a physical platform and a subway card to make us travel back in time or forth in time.
I mean,
we need an interpretation of it and the visceral human expression, because we have lost our way.
Almost ritualize it, especially in a religious context.
Yeah, but through the ritual is there to represent the physical expression of how it would feel to be blessed by, I don't know why, is that what people do? To be blessed by the sacrament.
Right. And believe me, I'm all for ritual. That's rituals. Great.
But rituals there is as our form.
This is very much a ritual.
Yeah, we take it as a ritual, right? But it puts us into the state of receptivity. Then we can cyclically dive into the nature of expression.
Yes, but that's what it is. It is not, if you recognize it as what it truly is, that's good. Instead of going, oh, this, eating the wafer or making sure we don't have instruments or whether or not there's a cross on the roof being the key thing. That's not the key. We get lost in those details as if they were the important thing.
Well,
but they become, when instead they're the ritual.
Well, they're a tool that we use. The tool, right? We have tools, right?
Yeah.
Because we're humans and we interpret things in a very physical, dimensional way,
yes.
and we don't interact with the fifth element.
But we confuse the tool with the teaching.
Sure. Sometimes, right? But honestly, we only confuse the tool with the teaching when we are in a triangulation mindset of the empire, victim, and resistance.
Yeah, I think that is true.
Right? We talk about this all the time and we make fun of this, but maybe this is the story that I will relay right now in case we haven't. When you and I first got together, I was raised Greek Orthodox and you were raised whatever cult Christian you are. And then you became an atheist. And then your mother came to our house at some point. And my mom at some point gave me an icon. In Greek Orthodox religion has icons, like that's their thing. And they're
in Church
beautiful.
of Christ, we do not.
Yeah, in Church of Christ, there's no iconography.
Not at all.
And in Greek Orthodox religion, it is almost like all iconography, like just, this beautiful representation of Jesus and Mary and the Holy Spirit. And, I don't know how you represent the Holy Spirit, but maybe,
dove.
A dove, whatever, right? And then, of course, they have all the saints because Greek Orthodox is a mixture of Christianity and Catholicism.
No saints in.
Yeah, right. And so the churches, obviously, if you go to Greek Orthodox Church, honestly, to me, it is the most beautiful expression of, like, if you had to take the bullshit energy out of it and actually see it for what it was meant to be, which is this physical, visceral expression of divinity in this form. But that could be done in any church, right? You walk into a mosque and you can feel it. And in any Christian church.
Especially in a mosque.
Oh my gosh, the mosques have the best expression of divine energy.
Because I've walked into churches that feel good and I've walked into churches that feel bad.
Yeah.
But I've never walked into a mosque that feels bad.
No,
we've toured quite a few mosques.
Yeah, when we went to as many mosques as we could in Turkey.
Yeah.
And it was the most exhilarating experience of divine expression. Right. So it doesn't matter what religion this is or what culture this is, but there's this intent, right? And so the reason why I'm telling this story is your mother flipped out that we had an icon in our house that, God forbid.
So this would have been, I would have not gone to church for 6, 7, 8, 9 years at this point. Like 16 was when I stopped, and this would have been, we got a house after we were married. I was 23, 24. So yeah, like I've been out of the church quite a while at this point.
Yeah, but you're still at that time you're still recognizing yourself as an atheist.
Yeah,
and I was never an atheist, but I was agnostic.
Yeah,
but now I don't know what the term is.
I was like, there is no harm in having that in the house. To me, I didn't particularly care if it's in the house or not. It doesn't. Back then, I'm like, this is a piece of painted wood.
Oh, really?
There's nothing inherently special about it. So, it's not. The position of the Church of Christ is that icons, the danger in icons is that you worship the icon instead of worshiping God. Which, okay, I understand that. But
yeah, I guess what I wanted to point out, the reason why I brought this up is because it meant what it meant for my family and for my mom. And, my dad is Hindu / whatever the heck he is. So my mom is really the only one who was Greek Orthodox at that time. And so like what it meant for my mom to give that to me and then me just have that. Honestly, to me, I see icons as this it's almost like a connection to my childhood, more so it is the connection to Mother Mary and Jesus and I guess, what is it, Joseph in that particular icon that we have? Or who would it be? Would it be Joseph?
Sitting room?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Joseph.
Right. And so to me, it is just a connection to my childhood. At the time, at least, it was more so than it was an expression of
religion.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then to her, it was a complete insult and assault on her religion. She saw it as an assault on her religion. And I just saw it as, one, it makes my mom happy to give this to me and to have this in my house because it carries this larger meaning for my mom because she thinks it's protection and whatever.
Yeah.
And then when our kids got baptized, they both got the icons of Mother Mary's, that she gave it to them as a gift during baptism. But, the essence of that, I'm getting teary-eyed here, to her, it represents her
right
expression, but let's be honest, of a pained body that is the loss of her being, and then the loss of sovereignty through the fear that she feels into that icon, right?
Yeah.
And to your mother, it represents an aggression onto that concept. So even if your mother had any right to say that something could be lost when you worship an icon, right? To that same extent, she didn't see her side that something could be lost when you attack those who decide to worship an icon.
Yes.
So from both standpoints, right?
Tolerance is not the word that comes to mind.
No, but from both standpoint, through our pain body, we can take something that is meant to be this offshoot, let's say, of rate of light, that is God, or that is the source, or that is the Pleiadians teaching, or whatever, and you can utilize and express it as the essence of your being through this uninterrupted source. Right. But then what we do as humans is we take the essence of that, and then we interpret that, quite literally, take it and start to interpret that through our personal expression of self. That is our mixture of love and light, and then our pain body form.
Right. I mean, it's. I guess now I view it as like a symbol. I guess that's probably how it's supposed to be viewed as a symbol or representation of, if not God and Jesus, then the source, one, whatnot.
Yeah.
And is it the same thing? No, but it doesn't have to be the same thing. On the other hand, yes, it is just as much as I am, just as much as you are, just as much as the rock is.
Right.
But it's a symbol. It's a reminder. It's a metaphor.
But in
which is probably
Buddhism,
how the Greek Orthodox probably and the Catholics probably interpreted anyway. Is there anything inherently special about this piece of wood? No, other than it is a symbol. It is a metaphor. It is a reminder.
Well, I know it. In fact, no. What it is just like the subway card. It's a tool for you to tune in into an infinite aspects of interpretation.
It's not a magic piece of wood.
No, but you use that as a tool to tune in into a frequency that is assigned into whatever this particular icon is.
We've watched quite a bit of stuff by William Henry, and he has a lot to say on religious, especially Christian icons and paintings and stuff like that. And there is a frequency you get into when you look at these works of art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but that's all they are, right? So from the essence of, right, if the Steiners, right, teachings of the Pleiadian source, if you tune into his goal of that essence and that expression, you can very much reach Pleiadian energy right away through that infinite connection. Now, then what is it that you do with it is very much a human interpretation, right? what my mom does to the icon once she connects to the source is her human expression of self, right? Is it love and light? Sometimes, from my mom's standpoint, I don't know, but I remember my grandma praying to her icon. And then of course I realized, and now I can see the energy that it had in it. And then so she would use that as a tool to connect into the energetic beam. And then through the verbal speech, then she would cantor, I guess that's the word, cantor a wish, right? Then she would want then to facilitate as expression into her world. Now, ... was there awareness behind it of why she's cantering the wish in such way? I would question all of those standpoints. But that is what we do, is we use it as a tool to tune into the frequency in which then we can deliver our sovereign state or a sovereign expression of ourselves at that time in the snapshot of our expression. Just like the subway, right? When we walk into the platform and then we step in and do something that takes us forward, then we can travel ourselves into a different time and space. Do you know what I mean? It's all the same.
Yeah. They're all just tools.
Yeah, we use it as a tool. And
we use it as tools in different ways, and we put more or less emphasis and more or less weight on it. Do you need the icon? Do you just need a picture of the icon? Do you need a picture of the icon on your phone? Is that enough? Can you just close your eyes and think of the icon? Can you skip the icon and go straight there? All of which are perfectly valid. They're all perfectly fine.
Yeah,
whatever works for you, because it's just a tool.
Yeah, it's just a tool. Like when, to begin with, whenever I started this journey, there was all of these spiritual teachers like, oh, you have to design an altar. You have to design an altar, right? And I was thinking, I have a lot of resistance to this altar situation. And I kept on researching, because if something is important to me as designing an altar, then I would be like, oh, I'll have to
ooh, I need a mood board for that.
Right? But it would probably take me months and months to even actualize of what is it that I want there, right?
Yeah, right. There is something very charming about having an altar. I don't mean that in a dismissive way at all. Because I think an altar would be great.
Well, no. But an altar would be there, right? All it is basically kind of like an immediate tool to where this space is.
This space is sacred. This is my reserved space for this.
Reserved space, no, but you set the space with the intention of, here's what I do here. Yeah. And what I do here is connect to the higher source, and I open my crown chakra, and all of a sudden I'm in this altered state of being where I facilitate X. But you basically train yourself to go, okay, the second I step into this place and I sit in front of this thing, this is what happens.
Yeah.
It's just, and so basically through that training, you entrain yourself into an altered state of theta and delta frequency quicker and quicker and quicker the more time you spend in that altar.
That's why they say that you should have different, if you are fortunate enough to have enough area in your house or rooms in your house, have different rooms for different things. Your office, that's for work. The bedroom, that's not for work. That's for two things, sleeping and other stuff. But if you get in the habit of working, whether that's on a computer or I don't know, with pen and paper, whatever it is, in bed, that is not great for your work or for your sleep.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. By they say you shouldn't have TVs in your bedroom, right?
Yeah.
It literally interrupts your idea of what the space is.
Yeah. I know not everybody has, I have an office and I have to have a bedroom and I have to have a room for this and room for that. But
designated space.
A designated space.
Yeah, you can have a multitask space.
Designated time, because your physical, emotional mode shifts based on the space that you're in.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fun to do work outside that's fine. For a change of scenery. It's fun to go to a restaurant or a coffee shop and do work on a laptop there. just for the change of scenery, just for the novelty of it, because it's like a new place would spark new ideas, would spark new things. But
Yeah.
in the bed is not the great place for that. Even on the couch in front of the TV is not a great place for that.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what the office is for.
But I will say this, because as human beings, as earthens, we use designation of the space to have the signature for specific tasks.
Yes.
But that same thing could be done if I sat in this chair and I was able to use my greater power, and I can, through my sovereign expression, tune in into all of these expressions of self all at once. You don't need the space.
You don't need the space.
It's just we have designed our spaces as tools.
It's a tool.
To facilitate better flow.
Yeah.
Right? But or specific flow, right, or specific nuance of flow. But I want to say that is how we express this on Earth.
Yeah.
But that doesn't
it's a life hack. I mean, it's a
sure. Is that what life hacks are?
I think so.
Yeah. I know. Are we completely off topic? No, we might be off topic. But yeah,
it wouldn't be an episode if we weren't off topic.
Yeah. But yeah, so whatever this arc of the topic is, I think it maybe held some consistent
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to summarize it. So maybe this is just it. Unless you have something else to add.
Trying to tie it back to was the topic war, or is the topic just the different things going on inside of us?
I think war is just an aspect of something that I'm going through right now, that I am seeing as a concept on the larger scale as an entity, and then thus I'm seeing an aspect of self from a very a present point of view, right? And then I'm looking at myself as an expression of that concept. Do you know what I mean? And maybe I will say this, since this is important. Then when you see yourself through it, and when you allow that to be your truth, right? Maybe I did already say this. Then you can choose your point of expression from that, right? You can say, "Oh, here's the defining nature of my being. Here's the defining nature of expression. Do I want to continue to express myself as such?"
Yeah.
Right.
But that's just awareness.
No, it's just awareness. So the warring part is that my particular nature of awareness of this one strand, right? But the reason why maybe I brought it up is because Earth right now is going through this prison nature of warring being within us. And we kind of have we're kind of at arms right now, like ready to strike. And the war being is activated. Whenever this is going to get published is basically the right time for this particular speech. But I want to say that is the beast that is within you, and the war is within you. And so at all times, it is important to draw that awareness of like, what is that is my expression right now? I guess if you want to go back to Jungian technology, use that as the tool. Like, oh, look, I am in the war aspect of my being, and I'm somehow on the defensive or the offensive, or I'm the victim, and look, I'm trying to dominate or resist or fight or however it is, right? That is where we are. And then when you allow that energy to flow, then you can look at it from that mirror standpoint of an overall overarching expression, right? Where you're not leveling, you're not like sinking in or leveling up. You're quite literally flipping yourself and your perspective on what it is, right? It is not the definition of I. It is quite literally a tool I use. And then through that knowledge, I guess you can decide whether or not you want to be in that gameplay.
Right. Because the fact is you're in all these games at different levels at different times, but we're just not aware that we're even in them.
Yeah.
But when you do bring the awareness to it, you get to decide, hey, I like this game. This is fun. I'm going to keep doing it. Or no, this game sucks. I'm done with that. I've done that. I've done it all my life. I don't want it anymore. Or yeah, I like this game, but I'm going to change the rules of the game because I can. I'm going to, flip it.
Yeah, I think flip it is right now kind of what I'm going through. Is that 180-degree flip? I don't know what that actually means. Like I have not spent time processing that, but that is what is happening, is that complete flip on the nature of my interpretation of reality. And I don't know how that's going to look like, but I'm super excited about doing
the car
thing. I don't know why.
Yeah.
For some reason, I'm slightly afraid. There's this fear-based.
We know which
aspect.
car. We know which car we're going to do it in.
Yeah, that's true.
We should do that before I put the new piece on.
I don't think the car will be flipped.
No, I don't think we flipped. That was a joke.
Yeah, but there's this. There you go. It's just interesting. I'm seeking a 3-dimensional interpretation of this flip, quite literally in the car form. That's like a 180 flip, not flip. In order to then facilitate an interpretive expression thereof in my physical form.
Next time we have a rental.
Right. I was thinking we should rent a car, and I should do this in the rental car. But then I'm like, ooh,
yeah.
I don't know.
Probably not a rental SUV.
No, something small. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we're off topic now, but so we should wrap it up. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.